Hey guys, Argent here. It's nighttime, so I have to keep my voice down a bit. So we're going to talk about Valar Morghulis and Valar Dohaeris, which are High Valyrian for all men must die and all men must serve respectively. I always found this a very interesting kind of philosophical statement. Game of Thrones isn't particularly known for its philosophy, but I found this deceptively simple set of expressions very profound, and it really actually changed the way I looked at the world. In the Game of Thrones universe, Valar Morghulis is widely used by everyone in Essos, but in particular it's associated with the many-faced god, aka the god of death. The interesting belief of the god of death is that they view death as a gift from the one true god, that death is ultimately a gift sent to relieve people from suffering. I suppose they mean it a gift in both the sense that your death means the end of your personal suffering, and the death of other people means the end of their ability to bring suffering to you. As the Faceless Men were founded by slaves in Valyria who brought down doom upon their masters. I actually think this is a rather deep and profound way of looking at the world. And it's something I've often find saying to myself. Um, saying Valar Morghulis to myself when I'm extremely afraid of something. I think ultimately there's a certain comfort in knowing that how badly you fuck up in the end you're dead. In the end we're all dead. It's kind of comforting to know that that great equalizer exists. And in a sense I suppose it's become a core aspect of my philosophy. So, kind of a very common theme in philosophy is the concept of the Übermensch, which is pre-Nietzsche, but Nietzsche is kind of the one it's known for, which is basically the idea that there are certain superior people who have a right to rule, who have a will to power, and that the purpose of existence is to some extent to seize power and to gain power for its own sake and to become the ultimate man. Um, my issue with that is that's never really appealed to me personally because, well, Valar Morghulis, ultimately in the long run we're all dead. Whether you're a king or a slave, whether you're the richest man in the world or the poorest man in the world, in the end death will equalize us all. So to me, seeking power for its own sake is utterly pointless. Um, you might enjoy life for a while, but in the end, eternity is infinitely longer than your life, and in the end, all men must die, regardless of how strong you are. You could be the greatest Übermensch who ever lived. You could die at age 110 with 20 children, but in the end, you're still dead. And in the end, does your life really, does it really matter whether you're the Übermensch or not? So that's kind of my answer to a lot of life's issues, is that in the end we're all dead. And it really puts things into perspective. Now, the second part of that is the answer to what do you do with this revelation that all men must die. The truth is that you must serve. You must serve something eternal, something greater than yourself. All men must die, but not all concepts die. God certainly won't die. Well, he did die, but you get what I'm saying. God is eternal. Concepts are eternal. Values are eternal. Um, your nation, your people, your culture are not eternal, but they last far longer than you. Um, to be an Übermensch is pointless because ultimately you die either way. So you must serve. You must devote yourself to greater things, to things that are eternal, to things that don't die out like men do. And this being said, you combine the two. Ultimately, in the long run, we all have to die sometime. Regardless of how much you accumulate, in the end, death will come for you. So, it really, to some extent, becomes a question of how do you want to die? What do you want to die for? Because if you must serve, then the service may require your death. And you may be hesitant about that, but in the end, we're all dead anyways. I suppose it does matter whether or not you die when you're 20 or die when you're 100. But to me, at least, if there's no immortality, if there's no afterlife, it really doesn't matter. Because eternity is infinitely long, and your life is infinitely short compared to it. So either eternity exists, or we don't have any fundamental meaning, because we cease to exist and we cease to have any sort of interpretation of the world after we die. Um, it doesn't really matter to me how much money I had when I died, how many children I had when I died, what my country was like. In the end, the only way out of death is to serve something greater than yourself, to serve your God, your country, to serve an idea, to believe in something that is eternal, or at least that will survive you. And that is to me kind of the essence of the many-faced God. The faceless men have given up their individuality, have given up their sense of self, because all men must die, so they may as well die while they're still alive and prepare themselves for death. And they dedicate themselves solely to serving the many-faced God. I don't know their beliefs on the afterlife, but I assume they believe in some sort of afterlife or some sort of salvation. So, to them, by serving, they guarantee eternity. And that's to extent what I believe we have to do. And that's kind of the essence of Christianity. I know C.S. Lewis said that the most basic assumption of Christianity is that you're going to live forever, and that you need to live your life based on that assumption, which is what I believe in. I certainly don't take the view that death is the end for us, but death is inevitable, and death is a part of life. And to some extent, I think to remain sane, we have to try to think of of the world like the followers of the many-faced God do. That in essence it's a gift, that it's an end to the sufferings and hardships of life, that even the greatest tyrants, the most prolific murderers, in the end will face death, as will we. I don't know, there's to me kind of a cruel beauty to it, a harsh justice, but a justice nonetheless. A great equality, a great equalizer, if you will. I don't know, I suppose in a world of so much iniquity, and I mean that in a moral sense, not really in a material sense. In a world of so much moral iniquity, it's kind of comforting to know that there is that one absolute there for everyone. And so I suppose the outcome of this meditation is I sometimes wonder if death was a gift that God gave us after the fall, so that we wouldn't have to live forever in an unclean, sin-filled world. If maybe he said you should only have to suffer for but a time before eternity, because that is how harsh and cruel the world is that I've created. And I'm not saying there's not good in the world, there certainly is good in the world, but it wears down a person, it wears on his psyche. In time, it shows on the body as well as the mind. And I find many old people are just waiting for it to end. Not that they didn't love their life, not that they don't, I suppose, wish they could be young again, but their time has come. So all men must die, and all men must serve. Those are my thoughts on the matter. This is Argent signing out.